Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a quick event which is going to be moving throughout parts of the Great Lakes and the Northeast for Thursday and Friday of this week. Ahead of the storm, you'll actually have some rather warm temperatures into parts of the coastal Northeast. It'll actually get up into the 60s and maybe even touching 70 in some of these spots, and then we're going to drop back down into the 20s, 30s, and you could even see some teens as you get a little bit further inland. We will have some measurable accumulation, especially in areas of New Hampshire and Maine, as well as parts of the Great Lakes, especially in those lake effect zones. And we might even have a bit of a mix of rain and snow in some areas further to the south. We'll have your ice and snow forecast in today's video, because we could even be seeing up to or even exceeding a quarter of an inch of ice in some parts of Maine from this one. So we're going to be talking about all of that and more in today's video. If you want a personal forecast for your area, just leave a comment down below. And for those of you who are wondering about other snowstorms, I will definitely be covering those. I just want to get at least this video out for the people who live in the affected zone of this storm, and then I'll start talking about the next couple. There has been some rumors, or at least some talk about another storm which is going to be potentially bigger than this one in the Northeast and the Great Lakes. Again, I'm going to wait for that to really transpire, or at least for us to come closer to that event before I actually talk about that too much, because in a lot of these events, that's going to be something that's going to be forecasted 6 days out and end up falling apart before then. So let's get into it, and let's start off with the current National Weather Service page. As you can see, we have some wind advisories into parts of New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and I even believe a little bit of Oklahoma as well. We also have that extending up through parts of Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota. And then we have high wind warnings in effect for some parts of Montana, South Dakota, and North Dakota. We have winter weather advisories up for the northeasternmost county of Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and the northern half of Maine. And most of that is actually for ice. Really, I believe if they, or probably if they didn't have too much ice with this event, these areas would most likely not have a winter weather advisory up. The winter weather advisory criteria is not the same all across the country, and especially you see that with winter storm warnings. For example, even a bit of snow in central or southern Florida could warrant a winter storm warning. Meanwhile, it's especially for anywhere basically north of this line, it's going to require 6 or more inches of snowfall to see a winter storm warning go up. So it really does vary around the country, and even into some of these parts in Maine and northern New Hampshire, it is going to take multiple inches of snowfall for them to even put up a winter weather advisory. So a little bit of ice, even if it's maybe just a tenth of an inch, that can cause some issues, and that's what's really warranting that winter weather advisory right now. Yesterday we had a high temperature of 93 degrees in Rio Grande Village, Texas, low temperature of 5 degrees in Big Falls, Wisconsin, and the highest rainfall report was 2.55 inches of rain in Mount Baker, Washington, and there were no snowfall reports yesterday. So here's a look at the European model and what it's forecasting. So we're going to have a couple waves of energy from this system. So by this point, the storm is all the way back here. We have a little line, or somewhat of a cold front. Right here, we have a warm front to the north, and because of this warm front, we are going to be seeing the warm air overlapping over the cold air. So we have cold air right along the surface, so it is below 32 degrees over this entire area. But if we were to look aloft, that 32-degree line would really only be right around here, which means that there is a sizable portion of the environment, or a sizable portion of Canada and the Northeast, where you're going to be colder on the surface than you will be in the upper atmosphere, meaning that you're going to start off with rain, and then once that gets to the surface, it's going to turn to freezing rain, and it'll instantly freeze up upon contact. So this is one of those events that you really need to be careful for, because on some of these roads, especially in this part of the country, these are not going to get plowed, or not going to get treated as well as some of these roads that would be in more of a populated area. So northern Maine and northern New Hampshire, although you might get some road salt out on the roads, again, they're not going to be treated as heavily or as well as, let's say, if that storm were to be along coastal Maine, or if it were to be in southern New Hampshire, just because there's less roads, there's less crews up in that part of the state to deal with all of that. So it will cause a lot of strain on those roads, and if you are going to be driving, at least take it slow and preferably stay off the roads at least through Friday morning. Wait for all the ice to melt off, and then probably go back on the roads. But you do want to wait for that ice to at least melt off. You don't want to be driving while it is freezing, raining. That freezing rain will happen later tonight into early tomorrow morning. You can see it's starting up into parts of Quebec and then also down through Vermont and New Hampshire, and then that's going to spread out through parts of Maine. So through the about Thursday early in the morning, so we're looking at right around midnight, we're looking at some amount of snowfall in eastern Maine, as well as parts of Quebec, areas basically around Quebec City on northward. The freezing rain is the area right in between Quebec City and Montreal, and then Montreal on south is where you're going to be dealing with mostly just rainfall from this event. So this freezing rain is actually going to spread across northern Maine. So as you can see here, we see that freezing rain continue on, and it's starting to spread further and further to the north. So it is approaching some of these bigger populated centers like Caribou and Presque Isle up in northern Maine. So these areas will get in on some amount of freezing rain. Luckily, most of the freezing rain will stay up into the heavily wooded and underpopulated part of northwestern Maine right up here, and especially so for this part of Maine where there's very, very little population, and it's basically just forest and wildlife in that part of Maine. So luckily, this is happening not in the southern part of the state where there would be more issues, and it is even staying away from bigger population centers like Caribou and even into areas like northwestern Maine, although you will see a lot of ice, which is more of a populated part of the state. It's not going to be as much as you will see in areas right along here, again, the less populated part of Maine. So this is going to be at least some good news that it's not happening over somewhere where you would have a ton of population over a single area, and it should melt away fairly quickly. We see that rain, the regular rain, wash over some of those spots. So if you live in northwestern Maine, if you live in northern New Hampshire, northeastern Vermont, you could see by, again, Thursday early in the morning, so tomorrow early morning, you could see that rain start to wash away whatever ice has already accumulated. You will also have some snow, so it will be hard for this to really be shoveled away, because if you don't get your snow shoveled quickly, that initial coating of snow might be stuck to the ground because it's going to get compressed by more freezing rain right after it. So you might have 3 hours of snow and then you go into freezing rain. Those are always the worst type of scenarios, and it's actually probably worse when you have freezing rain and then snow, because then it gets slippery underneath it. So you're going to want to try and shovel away whatever amount of snowfall you get as quickly as possible, because then the freezing rain is going to come in and it's going to be much, much harder to shovel away the ice rather than the snow. Here's your next wave of precipitation. So we have mainly just rain from this band right here, but on the back end of this, we will have some fairly colder temperatures. Now, in front of it, we will have temperatures up in the 60s and maybe, again, even touching 70 into some parts of the coastal Northeast, and as that moves through, once that cold air starts to catch up with it, areas in the Adirondacks might get in on some snowfall, maybe some of the Green and White Mountains, the Berkshires might get a mix of rain and snow. So again, it's going to be mainly in the high elevations, areas well interior of the coast, and then behind the system, it'll be cold enough to see some lake effect snow or rain along areas of Buffalo and Erie, and maybe even north of Cleveland. Western Michigan could get in on a little bit more snowfall as well in the form of lake effect, and then again that rain and mix of snow as well will continue to move on to the east. We still do have some light snow maybe lingering into northern New Hampshire and parts of northern Maine, but it's not going to stick too much, considering that it'll be right around 33, 34 degrees while it's snowing. So it's not going to really stick too well to the ground. And the rain, which will come in from the second wave on Friday afternoon, will help to melt away any ice that accumulated. So there are some good benefits to seeing this system. It will also relieve some of the drought which we had up into northern New England. So that's always a good sign right there. You can also see here's your 32-degree line right behind the system. So right behind the system, probably just by a couple hundred miles, we will have some much colder air. So you're going to see probably a 40 degree temperature swing. You could go from as high as 70 degrees to as low as 30 or below right behind the system. So you're looking at right around 35-40 degree temperature swing for many of these areas. It'll be the most extreme right along the coast, where it'll heat up really warm on Thursday, and then it'll come back and it'll become really cold as we get to Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be rather chilly. Tomorrow is really the only day this week that I think you could say it's t-shirt and short weather, but the rest of the week it's going to be pants and a long sleeve for most people. It will be below 32 degrees for many areas, even during the daytime. So really not warming up too much after this initial wave. Here's the freezing rain accumulation according to this model, and you can see that we're looking at maybe up to 1/10 of an inch in those first two layers of pink. So that would cover much of northeastern Maine. So again, the areas around Caribou, maybe parts of Vermont and central New Hampshire as well. And then this is really the bullseye area right here. So this would be right up near Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, and then all the way into northwestern most Maine. So this is really an area where you're going to have quite a bit of accumulation in terms of freezing rain, and it will cause some issues, especially if you are going to be driving up into this area. So you at least just want to kind of stay off the roads as much as you can, at least through Thursday evening or Friday morning, just because after that you will get some rain to wash away some of the ice. So it might start melting away by that point. But I would say for Thursday morning, it's going to be a rough commute to work in these areas or to school, just because of all that freezing rain. And looking at the snow, now it is going to show some snow down here. That's not going to happen at all, most likely. If anything, that would just be a mix of rain and snow, and it would be happening overnight, so you would not even see it. So it's not happening during the day. You would not be able to even see it out your window at night. So really nothing significant down there. We're looking at lake effect snow down in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. You see a couple bands right here, also into Michigan as well. So these areas could get in on a couple inches of snow, and then the bigger, heftier snowfall, which still it's not even that much snowfall. It's only a couple inches, is in northern Maine, northern New Hampshire. Those areas getting maybe up near 2 to 3 inches of snowfall at the most. Again, this is not going to be a big snow event. It's going to be very quick, but I think the ice precipitation will be the bigger issue out of this one. So here's your ice and snowfall forecast. We're going to start off with the ice. This is going through Thursday and into Friday, and I'm looking at less than 1/10 of an inch of ice, so basically any amount of ice from northeastern Vermont through northern New Hampshire and into the northern half of Maine. So again, less than 1/10 of an inch of ice into this area. The roads will still be drivable, but it might be a little bit slippery, and you do want to at least take some caution. Now, here's 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, and this is where it is going to be more of a struggle to drive out on the roads, especially for Thursday morning. So tomorrow morning, and especially maybe more into the later morning, so 10, 11, 12 o'clock. That's when it's going to be a little bit more on a challenge to drive on some of these roads, and it will be mainly because the ice is going to come in during the morning. You're going to have some colder air move in behind it that might refreeze some of that, and also the initial blanket of snow that'll come in on the front side of the storm for later this evening and into tomorrow morning. That should also complicate things as well. So clearing those roads is definitely going to be a hassle, even though it's only just maybe an inch of snow and 1/4 inch of ice. That combination, especially with the ice, is going to cause some issues. If we move this on to the next layer, this is 1/4 inch to 1/2 an inch, so basically just 1/4 inch or more of ice. I'm thinking more around 3/10 of an inch is going to be the maximum, and that'll be for northwestern Maine, northern New Hampshire. So we're not looking at anything anything that'll be too widespread, but some localized areas will get in on maybe closer to a quarter inch of ice, and that'll definitely be significant if that does end up accumulating. Now here's the snowfall forecast, and really it's going to be a simple one. We just have a couple layers just because there's not going to be a ton of heavy accumulation out of this one. No accumulation or a mix in that pink color. You can see that for some parts of Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, even into Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. I did have some issues, especially in coastal Maine, with trying to figure out whether this snow will stick. I don't think you're going to have too much accumulation, although I do think you will see some snowflakes, but it would be happening at night. So it would happen for Thursday evening into Friday morning. Or it would happen on the front end of the storm, which would also be for tonight into early tomorrow morning. So either way, either side of the storm, whether it happens on the front end or the back end of the system, it would be at night. So you would not be able to see the snowflakes actually falling, and I don't think too much accumulation would happen, mainly because you would be above freezing in those areas. Same thing occurring for the rest of those areas in pink, the Catskills, the Berkshires, the Green and White Mountains. A lot of those areas I don't think we'll see too much accumulation, although you could see some mixing, some snow, maybe some wet snow mixing in there as well. So you could definitely get some slippery roads. But in terms of accumulation, I'm really not seeing anything too significant there. Looking at the next area, this is basically just any amount of accumulating measurable snowfall. You can see that for some parts of Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, even into some of the Green and White Mountains, as well as northern Maine. These are the areas that could definitely get maybe just 1 or 2 inches, and the only area that I think could get closer to 3 or 4 inches of snowfall is going to be northwestern Maine. So this area getting the most ice and the most snowfall, that will cause some issues, of course. So if you know anybody from that area, if you're going to be driving through that area, or if you personally live in that area, just take some precautions and just be aware of the possible wintry mess that'll be outside from Thursday or from tomorrow through Friday. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Goodbye.